Hey y'all, today we're going over lesson 10.6, which is about segment relationships in circles. So this is different than last lesson. The pictures look a little similar sometimes, but the difference is last lesson we talked about arcs and angle measurements, and then today's is about the segment lengths. Okay, so we're looking at the measurements of segment lengths. We've got three different instances where we might see this. This first one right here is when they intersect inside of the circle. So right here is the intersection of those two lines. So we're going to say it intersects on the inside. And then our formula right below it is going to be multiplying the parts of the lines together. So for example, here we would be multiplying C to E with E to A, because those are the same line, just different parts. And then we would be multiplying it with the two parts of the other line. So from D to the intersection, and then the intersection to B. So you got to keep the same parts of those lines together. So let's try number one down here as an example. We have to pick our formula first. We just said that if the intersection's on the inside, we are going to be doing part times part equals part times part. You can start with whatever part you want to. It does not matter. I'm going to start with this 9 right here. So the first part is 9 times our next part of that same exact line, because remember you got to keep the parts of the same line together, would be 5. So we have 9 times 5 equals, and then we can do the other line. For the other line, we have x on one side times the other part of that same line is going to be 3. So times 3. And then we're just going to solve this equation. So 9 times 5 is 45. X times 3 makes 3x. And then we're going to divide by 3 on both sides to get rid of it. 45 divided by 3 makes 15. The 3's cancel out and leaves us with x. So on this problem, x equals 15. So moving on to the next kind of formula here. On this one, the intersection is on the outside of the circle. Over here at D, we've got the intersection on the outside. Okay, so let's go and write that down. The intersection is on the outside. And if you notice the next part, it has formulas for both of them. So let's talk about the last picture as well. This one, again, the intersection is on the outside at point C. So our formula for these two, it's going to be the outside times the whole, and then equals the outside times the whole. Again, for this, we need to keep the same lines together on the same side of the equation. You cannot mix them up. So let's try an example of each of these. We just said that the intersection's on the outside, which means we are going to be using the outside times all or outside times whole formula. So let's go ahead and look at our lines here. For the top line, the outside section is 5. So we're going to say the outside is 5. Times, you need to be careful right here. Then it's asking us for all of the top line. So we got to take all of that and put it together, which means we're going to add it. So we're doing x plus 5. And we want to put it in parentheses since it's more than one thing. Now we can do the other line. For the other line, the outside section is 7.5 times, when we look at the whole entire thing, again, remember we need to do the entire line, which means we need to add those two sections together. So in parentheses, we're going to do 4.5 plus 7.5. From here, we're going to solve this equation. On the left, since there's an x in the parentheses, we need to distribute. So we're going to do 5 times x, which makes 5x, and then we're going to do 5 times 5, which makes 25. And on the right side, there are no x's, so that means we can type all of that into the calculator, and it would give us 90 for the right side. And then we're just going to keep solving. We need to move the 25 next. We're going to do the opposite on both sides. So 5x equals 65. And then last step, we're going to divide both sides by 5, and 65 divided by 5 is 13. So our final answer here, x equals 13. And then number 3 is slightly different. We're still using the same formula because our intersection is on the outside again. So we are going to use the outside times all equals outside times all. Let's look at both of our lines again. So for the top line, the outside part is 20. So we've got 20 times, and then the whole entire line is 20 plus x. Remember, you need to be adding that, not multiplying it. Equals, and then we can do our other line. The other line, the outside is 31. And then if you notice, the blue line does not go inside the circle at all. So 31 is the outside section, and it is the whole section, so the all. So we'll do 31 times 31. And then we're going to solve this. Again, we have a number outside of the parentheses, so that means we need to distribute. 20 times 20 makes 400, and 20 times x makes 20x. 31 times 31 makes 961. Then we would subtract 400 on both sides. It would leave us with 20x equals 561. And then last step, we would need to divide by 20 in our calculators. And that would give us 28.05 for x. All right, let's try some more practice problems down here at the bottom. They gave us some steps again in case you need to see them. First step, we need to identify if the intersection point is inside or outside of the circle. Here is our intersection right here. So that means the intersection is inside of the circle, and we should be using the first formula we went over today, which is part times part equals part times part. So let's go ahead and get working on that. We need to identify our parts. The first part that I'm going to use here is the 2. So we have 2 times. And then the connecting part with that one is the x plus 1. So we have 2 times. Since it's more than one thing, we're going to put it in parentheses. And then we can do the other line. The first part of that line is 4 times. The rest of that line is 3. On the left, we have parentheses, so we need to distribute. 2 times x makes 2x. 2 times 1 makes 2. And 4 times 3 makes 12. Then we're going to subtract 2 on both sides to get rid of it. Bring down your 2x, cross off your 2's, and 12 minus 2 is 10. Last step, we're going to divide both sides by 2, and that is going to leave us with x equals 5. For question number 5, again, we need to start by identifying where our intersection is. On this question, again, our intersection is on the inside of the circle, so we are using our part times part formula. And let's go ahead and identify those sections. I'm going to start with the 15, so we have 15 times. The other part of that line is the 5x minus 2. So we're going to do times, and since there's more than one thing going on, we're going to put it in parentheses. So 5x minus 2 equals, and then back to our picture, the top part of that line is 10. So we're going to start off with 10 times, and then the bottom part of that line is 7x. So 10 times 7x. We have parentheses again, so we are going to distribute. 15 times 5x makes 75x, and 15 times negative 2 makes negative 30. On the right side, 10 times 7x makes 70x. Then we're going to start moving our x's around. We want all of our x's to be together, so we're going to move the 75x to the other side. There's a couple of ways we can do this, so if you thought you should move the 70x first, that would be fine as well. So we're going to bring down the negative 30. 70x minus 75x is going to give us negative 5x. And our last step here, we can divide both sides by negative 5, and that is going to give us a positive 6. All right, on the back side of the page, we have more examples here. We're still starting off the same way. We need to identify where the intersection is. On number 6, it is on the outside of our circle. So that means we're using the outside times all equals outside times all formula. So let's go ahead and identify our sections. First part, the top line, the outside is 9, so 9 times. And then the entire line is 9 plus 11. So remember, we have to add those, not multiply. 9 plus 11 gives us 20 for that outside section. So 9 times 20 equals. And then we're going to do the bottom line. The outside for the bottom line is 10 times all of the bottom line is 10 and x. So we need to add those two sections together. So we have in parentheses 10 plus x. 9 times 20 gives us 180. And then on the right side, we need to distribute because we have parentheses. 10 times 10 is 100, and 10 times x is 10x. We're going to move our 100 to the other side by subtracting it. 180 minus 100 is 80. The 100s cancel out and bring down your 10x. And then last step, we need to divide both sides by 10 to get rid of it, and x will equal 8. For number 7, again, our intersection is on the outside of our circle, so we're using the outside times all formula. So we'll start with the top line. The outside section of the top line is 15 times all of this line. So we're adding those two things together. So we have in parentheses 3x plus 15 for the whole line. And then we can do the bottom line. The outside is 20 times all. We need to add both of the x and the 20 sections together. So we are doing x plus 20. We've got parentheses on both sides, so we need to distribute on both sides. 15 times 3x makes 45x. 15 times 15 makes 225. Then on the right side to distribute, we have 20 times x, which makes 20x, and 20 times 20 makes 400. We want to put our x's together, so we're going to start with the smaller x, which is the 20x. We're going to do the opposite, so we're subtracting it on both sides. 45x minus 20x makes 25x. Bring down the plus 225. The 20x's cancel out. Bring down the 400. Now that we got the x's on one side, we want to move the numbers to the other. So we're going to subtract 225 on both sides. Bring down your 25x. 225 minus 225 makes 0, so we can cross it off. And 400 minus 225 makes 175. Last step, we are going to divide by 25 on both sides. And that is going to give us x equals 7 at the end. For number 8, our intersection, again, is on the outside. So we're doing outside times all equals outside times all. We'll start with the side on the left here. So the outside of that green line is x plus 1. And if it's more than one thing, we want to put it in parentheses. Times, now all of that green line is on the outside of the circle, so we're just multiplying it times itself. Equals, now we can do the right side. So for the outside, we have x minus 1. In parentheses again. And then for the whole entire line, we have all of this. So we need to add those two things together. X minus 1 plus 5. Ooh, that's a long equation, but that's all right. All right, so the first part of this equation, we have two sets of parentheses. So you cannot do the rainbow method on this because we have too many things going on here. Okay. Instead, what I like to do here is FOIL method. You might have learned a couple of different methods. FOIL is an acronym, F-O-I-L. F stands for the first of each. So we're going to multiply the x and the x together. X times x makes x squared. The O in FOIL stands for outside. So we're going to multiply the x from the first one times the 1 at the end. So it's the outside numbers. So x times 1 makes 1x. The I in FOIL stands for insides. So we're going to multiply the insides. Again, it's a 1 and an x, so we've got another plus 1x. And then L stands for last. So it's the last number in each set of parentheses. So we've got 1 times 1, and that makes just 1. Now the right side of this equation has a little bit more going on, so we want to simplify it first. If you notice at the end of the second parentheses, we've got two numbers that we can combine right there. So we want to do that first before we move on and simplify it. So we're going to keep the x minus 1 the same, and then in the other parentheses, we're going to have x. Negative 1 plus 5 makes positive 4. All right, so now we can do the FOIL method with the right side of the equation as well. We're going to keep the left side the same, except for right here we have 1x plus 1x. We're going to go ahead and combine those and make 2x. All right, so now we can FOIL the right side. The first, we've got x in both of them, so x times x makes x squared. Then the outsides, we've got x times 4, which makes 4x. Inside's -1 times x makes -1x. And then last, -1 times 4 makes -4. So here, next step, we want to combine these x's right here into one thing to make it a little bit more simplified. So I'm going to bring down x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals x squared. 4x minus 1x is going to make 3x, and subtract your 4. Now this looks like a hard equation to solve, but we can actually cross some things out. If it is the exact same on both sides of the equation, you can cross it off because we don't need it on both sides. It's going to cancel out anyways. So if you notice x squared is on both sides of this equation, same exact thing on both sides, we can cross it off. Nothing else is the exact same though, so we want to leave it as that. So I'm going to bring down everything that's left. We have 2x plus 1 equals 3x minus 4. Now this looks a lot easier, a lot more simple to solve. We're going to start with a smaller x, which is the 2x. We got to do the opposite on both sides, so we're going to subtract it. Bring down your 1. 3x minus 2x makes just 1x. Bring down your minus 4. And now we only have one step left. We need to get rid of the minus 4, so we are going to do the opposite on both sides. 1 plus 4 makes 5. Bring down your x, and the 4's cancel out. So 5 equals x. All right, last one, number 9, says find the radius of the aquarium tank. Okay, we need to start again by identifying where the intersection is. The intersection is on the outside of our circle, so we are doing outside times all equals outside times all. So let's start with the top line. Here's our top line. The outside section is 20 times the whole entire line is already outside, so we're multiplying by the same number, 20 times 20. The right side of the equation is our other line. Here is our other line, and here's the outside section of it. So the outside of that line is just 8 times the whole entire line. This time we have 3 pieces. We have r on the left, r on the right, and 8 on the outside. So we're going to be adding r plus 8. All right, we're going to simplify a couple of things. 20 times 20 makes 400. Before we do the distributing here, we want to simplify it a little bit. On the inside, we have r plus r. That makes 2 r's. So we're going to simplify it like that first. And then we will distribute it to make it a little bit easier. So that 8 needs to be multiplied by the 2r. That's going to make 16r. And 8 times 8 makes 64. We are going to subtract 64 on both sides to get rid of it. 400 minus 64 is going to give us 336. Bring down your 16r, and the 64's cancel out. And then last step, we need to divide both sides by 16. And that is going to give us r equals 21. Let's go back to their question. They said find the radius of the aquarium tank. If you notice, the radius is always going to be half of the circle from the center point to any point on the outside. So we just said r equals 21. That is what they're asking for. The radius of that circle is 21. All right, guys, if y'all have any questions, please ask your geometry teachers. I hope y'all have a great day and good luck on y'all's tests coming up.